Some goodbyes are casual, said over a shoulder with the promise of return, while others arrive heavy with permanence, lingering long after the words fade. Kelly Ripa never imagined she would stand at the edge of one that felt unfinished, uncertain, and terrifying. Watching the person you've built a life with struggle for breath is an experience that strips away every illusion of control. In that moment, love is no longer a feeling, but an act of endurance. Kelly found herself suspended between hope and fear, between the instinct to hold on and the unimaginable courage required to let go. This was not a public story or a celebrity moment. It was the most private kind of reckoning, the kind that changes how you understand love forever. A love story that felt unbreakable. For decades, Kelly and Mark had been held up as a rare example of longevity in an industry known for impermanence. Viewers watched them grow from young actors into partners, parents, and public figures who never lost their sense of playfulness. Their relationship felt grounded, resilient, and deeply human. It wasn't perfection that made people believe in them, but consistency. Through career shifts, parenting challenges, and the constant scrutiny of public life, they showed up for each other. That history made what came next feel even more unreal. When a relationship has weathered so much, it's easy to believe it will survive anything. Illness has a way of challenging even the strongest assumptions. The subtle signs. No one wants to see the beginning wasn't dramatic. It rarely is. Mark was more tired than usual, a little short of breath, slower to recover from things that once barely registered. These changes were easy to dismiss, especially in a life filled with early mornings, long workdays, and constant movement. But love sharpens perception. Kelly noticed the pauses, the way his energy seemed diminished even when he tried to hide it. She sensed something beneath the surface, something unspoken. For people who share decades together, intuition becomes a language of its own. She encouraged him to get checked, gently at first, then with growing urgency, until the moment arrived when ignoring it was no longer possible. The room. Where everything changed. Doctors' offices have a way of freezing time. Kelly remembers the stillness, the clinical calm that felt at odds with the words that followed. The diagnosis was delivered carefully, but no amount of gentleness could soften its impact. In that instant, life divided itself into before and after. Plans dissolved. Priorities collapsed inward. Survival became the only objective. Kelly later described the silence that followed as overwhelming, a space where fear rushed in unchecked. It wasn't just about what was happening now, but everything that might never happen again. The weight of that realization pressed down harder than any spoken explanation. When the ICU becomes your world, intensive care units exist in a reality separate from the outside world. Days blur together, nights stretch endlessly, every sound feels amplified, every pause ominous. Kelly walked those hallways memorizing the smell of antiseptic, the rhythm of footsteps, the expressions of nurses who had learned how to balance compassion with precision. Mark lay surrounded by machines that breathed and monitored and alerted, each one a reminder of how fragile life can be. Sitting beside him, Kelly learned to measure hope in the smallest increments, a stable reading, a quiet moment, a breath that came easily. Each one mattered. The choice? No one is prepared for. There are moments in life that demand more than strength. They demand clarity under unbearable pressure. Kelly was faced with conversations no spouse ever wants to have, discussions about treatment paths that carried uncertainty on both sides. Aggressive intervention offered hope, but no guarantees. Comfort-focused care promised peace, but at a devastating cost. Signing consent forms felt like signing pieces of her heart away. The responsibility of deciding for someone you love when they cannot speak for themselves is a weight that cannot be shared. Kelly carried it quietly, knowing that whatever choice she made would follow her forever. Love in its most selfless form. At Mark's bedside, Kelly leaned in close, pressing her forehead to his, and spoke words that shattered her even as she said them. She told him that if he needed to rest, if the fight became too much, she would understand. It was not permission born of despair, but of love so deep it placed his peace above her fear of loss. To offer that kind of release requires a courage few ever recognize. Later, when she spoke of it, her voice carried the weight of that moment. It wasn't surrender, it was devotion in its purest form. The answer that came without words. In response, Mark squeezed her hand. The movement was slight, barely there, but unmistakable. In that fragile gesture was an answer stronger than speech. He was still present, still choosing to fight. That moment unraveled Kelly completely. Relief and terror collided inside her because survival was still uncertain and the road ahead remained long. But for that instant, there was clarity. He was not ready to let go, and neither was she. Nights measured in breaths. The days that followed were defined by vigilance. Kelly stayed by his side, sleeping in fragments, waking to every shift in sound or movement. Machines replaced lullabies. Prayer replaced rest. She counted breaths, watched monitors, and learned to live inside constant alertness. Anyone who has spent time in a hospital chair understands that exhaustion becomes secondary to presence. Love becomes an act of staying, even when your body begs for rest. Kelly stayed. When hope is interrupted, just as stability began to feel possible, alarms cut through the room. Nurses rushed in. Kelly was moved aside as medical teams worked with practiced urgency. For a moment, she felt detached from her own body, watching events unfold as if through glass. Fear returned full force. She later admitted that in that instant, she believed she was losing him. Then slowly, the alarms quieted. The rhythm steadied. He remained. Relief followed, but it carried a cost. The experience left a permanent mark, a reminder of how quickly everything could change. The quiet doubt. Caregivers. Carry in. The stillness that followed. Kelly wrestled with questions she never voiced aloud. Was she asking too much of him? Was her hope prolonging his suffering? Caregivers often live in that space of doubt, torn between protecting the person they love and honoring the limits of what that person can endure. Kelly confronted those thoughts honestly, knowing there were no perfect answers. Love, she learned, is not certainty, it is presence in the absence of it. A memory that refused to leave. Years earlier, in an ordinary moment at home, Mark had spoken about resilience and choice, about facing hardship with intention rather than fear. That memory resurfaced now, anchoring Kelly when uncertainty threatened to overwhelm her. It reminded her that the man she loved was more than his illness. He was still himself, still capable of choosing how to meet what came next. That understanding allowed her to keep going. The longest road back recovery did not arrive all at once. It came slowly, unevenly, marked by small progress and setbacks alike. When Mark eventually left intensive care, it felt like crossing into a new chapter, not a resolution, but a continuation. Strength returned in fragments. Patience became essential. Kelly adjusted her world around his needs, protecting his energy, celebrating incremental victories. Home took on new meaning, no longer just a place of comfort, but a symbol of survival. A life forever reframed. What they endured changed them. It reshaped their understanding of time, of plans, of what truly matters. The future became something to approach gently rather than assume. Love felt deeper, quieter, more deliberate. The experience did not leave them untouched, but it did not break them either. Instead, it refined their bond, stripping it down to its most essential truth. What remains? After the storm, Kelly later reflected that the experience taught her something profound. Life is not held together by schedules, achievements, or appearances. It is held together by the people we love and the moments we choose to stay. When faced with fear, resilience is not about being unafraid. It is about showing up anyway. That lesson, forged in the most difficult chapter of her life, continues to guide her forward.